Hey guys, it's Robin, RsIslandCrafts, and welcome to my craft room. This is my Whip It Wednesday video where I show you whatever I've been working on in the craft room in the past week, whether it's a little bit or a lot. So let's get started. Jingle, jingle, jingle. Okay, so I had a customer, I had in my shop, in my Art Fire shop, link down below, I had a drawstring bag made out of this fabric, and she wanted a coin pouch to match. But I'd used up all the fabric, so I had to place an online order, wait for it to come in, blah, 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 blah. So if I believe I have a picture of the little coin pouch, I'll put it right here. And I also said, I mentioned to her that I had enough to make a key fob in case she wanted one. Now, that was just me kind of, a lot of times people like to have the whole set, so she wanted to have the drawstring pouch, and she wanted to have a coin pouch to match, and I thought maybe she might want a key fob also. So I like making key fobs, so I just went ahead and made one. She didn't want it, so it is now on my keys. And now, just thought, randomly, you ever wonder what's on someone's keychains? We do drive a Chevy, so there's my keys. This is my house key because my daughter got this for me because she knows I love Eeyore. My daughter was in the Army, so I have my proud Army parent. They didn't have any moms. Dad got a proud dad, so I just had to stick with the proud parent, which is fine. This is the key. This is the key to my post office box. That's also in the link down below if anyone wants to send me a surprise. Not saying you have to, but I'm just saying this is where I pick up your postcards and stuff. And then I just got random other ones. This is the key to my kid's house. This is a key to something. It's a master lock, so I don't know. It's a key to something. This is a key to something else. Do you ever have those keys that you just have on your keychain? You really don't know what they're for? I don't know. I've had them on there for so long that I just never think about it. But I don't keep too many keys on it because it's already starting to get just a wee bit heavy because this is quite heavy. You don't want to have a lot of heaviness hanging from your ignition. It's kind of funny, my daughter really doesn't even carry much of a keychain because her car is an automatic ignition. So she just has that little fob that she carries, and you just sit down and the car automatically starts when you press a little button. I kind of like that. Anyway, so I did make a key fob. I always told you guys on my Whip It Wednesdays that I would show you everything I make no matter what. Now I pulled out my batik tree art quilt, and I went ahead and I hand stitched all the facing down. If you watched my Talk to Me Tuesday video yesterday, you already heard me ramble a little bit about this, but you can see how when I was hand stitching it down that some of the white batting came up through my stitches. Now that's never really happened to me before. I believe they call it bearding. I'm not a fan of it. I really want to use the black for the back of this so that whatever color I use for my quilting, that it'll pop through like this. I like to have that secret design on the back of these art quilts. I'm trying to come up with a little something that's going to be, if you were to see this, you'd be like, oh, that's what Robin does. I recognize that. So I'm trying to find that little thing that I'm going to do. And so this isn't going to work. I could always use black batting, but I wouldn't want to use black batting on a lot of things because what if I wanted to use some type of a light fabric on the front? Then you'd see the shadow of the black batting. I still have to hand stitch down the facing on my pumpkin quilt, and if this happens again, then I might just go ahead and switch the color of my facing maybe, bring in a lighter color. I could try to just stitch through the fabric and not into the batting, but this is something I do all the time, and I've always just gone and stitched through into the batting, into the fabric. Darn, sometimes I even go through and stitch all the way through to the front by accident, and I've never had it bearded like this. I'm kind of wondering if maybe because I did it when I wasn't quite feeling well, when I had the migraine over the weekend, that maybe I did something goofy. I used a different needle that I've never used before. So it could have been the needle. I don't know. I'm going to try using my regular needle when I do the pumpkin and pay more attention to what I'm doing, well, as much as I've ever paid attention, and see how that works up. But it's done. I put some work every day into the shawl I'm working on. This is a Super Eyelet Shawl by the Woolly Brew. I'm using the Lion brand ice cream yarn in the colorway Cookies and Cream. I have it on my size 8 chow goose that I love. I put a couple of my little quilting clips on here just because I wanted to be able to spread the shawl out, and I didn't want to go look for my needle protectors, and this will stop it from coming off the end. So this is where I was last week. I went ahead and put a few inches on. I've been trying to do at least one row one way and one row back, so a total of 2 rows every night, just to kind of get a little bit on it, to keep forward momentum. I really love the way this shawl is turning out, and I don't mind lace work, and this is the simplest of lace work. Here's a little stitch marker that I'm using for the center. This is really cute. It's a snowflake. I don't care if it's in the middle of summer still. Snow time's coming sooner or later, even though it's not going to snow here in Florida. So I don't have a long enough cable to actually pull this all the way out, but you get an idea. And now you can see what that lace work is kind of looking like. There it is up close. It ends up being like a lattice, like you would see in a garden, a lattice fence or something like that, a little grid work here. So it's going to be really nice. It's going to be a nice light but warm shawl. It's going to help you hold a little bit of your heat in, but it's not going to be super heavy like a big winter jacket or something like that. So while I'm thinking, let me go ahead and move my stitch marker so that we know where we were. There we go. So that's all set. This is the movable stitch markers. This one, where's my snowflakes? This snowflake, it is on a metal loop. So the only way you can get this off is if you knit to this and then it comes off, or of course you could obviously cut it off if you had to. But this one is a movable stitch marker that has just got this little clip in here. So you can use it to mark your rows and mark certain stitches, and it's not stuck in your work. I did get a chance to work on my floral unicorn embroidery hoop. This is by Jessica Anderson from cutesicrafts.com. I went ahead, let's see if I remember exactly what I did. I did the yellow flower and the pink flower. And then these leaves up here were done, but I did all of these leaves all the way through. The pattern calls for you, I mean, you could do whatever you want. They have a suggestion if you're not feeling very creative and you just want to do what the designer says. So she has us doing a satin stitch in all the flowers like this, and then you just put French knots in the center. And I just went with a light pink with this more mauve-y color there. And then I went with this one yellow with brown in the center, so it kind of reminded me of a sunflower. And then I went and worked on the leaves. This one is a leaf stitch. And it's a new stitch to me, and I'm practicing it, and I'm not getting it quite perfect, but I like the way it looks. So I did that, and then I just went and stuck with the satin stitches here. Definitely needs some work on it. And I did this dual colored satin stitch where you use a dark color here and a light color there. Yeah, once again, that one didn't come out quite perfect, but they're leaves. They're not supposed to be perfect, right? Then there's this thing called an open leaf stitch. So I tried that through here, and I didn't quite like the way it was looking, so then I went ahead and added some extra stitches, and now, what is it that those girls, when they braid their hair, it's like a fishtail or fishbone stitch or something like that, when they braid their hair? That's what it reminded me of. I kind of like the way that looked. So the next up now, I'm going to be taking some gray, and I'm going to go ahead and outline all the body of the unicorn, followed by the horn, and then my last part will be the mane, because there's going to be a lot of stitches in there, but it's going to be fun, so I'm leaving that to the end. And I think I have decided that I'm going to go ahead and do some type of a stitch all the way around here, just to keep it. I might still hang it in a hoop like this, but I put it in a larger hoop, and I just like the way this kind of makes it frames the picture nicely, so it does look like a picture. So there's my little embroidery. I finished my latest Bankhead hat. This is where I was when I showed you last week, and now it's completely done. And as you can see, this is a bit of a poofy, rather large hat. It kind of reminds me of a sea urchin. But this is the Bankhead hat. It's by Susan Gorky. It's a free pattern on Ravelry. I still need to weave in the ends, but I wanted it to be a man's large, and I wanted it to be a little bit roomy, or something that a woman can wear with a lot of hair, or a man with a lot of hair, because a lot of men are keeping their hair longer. And this keeps catching my eye, but don't worry, when I go ahead and I weave in the ends, I go ahead and I close this up. It's just a little trick I do down here. When you join you knit this in a round, you just keep knitting round and round and round instead of flat like a blanket. And instead of joining on the first round, I like to do a couple rows first, and then I come back through with my cast on tail, and I just go ahead and I close up that hole. It keeps me, when I go to join my stitches, if you're a knitter, you'll understand when you're knitting in the round, when you go to join your stitches, you have to be really careful they don't get twisted on your needle. It's a lot easier for me to make sure it's not twisted if I do a couple rounds first. It does change the look ever so slightly, but it's not going to be enough. Once it's worn and washed, you're not going to notice it. So that's all done. One more knitting project, and then I'll show you what I worked on in the quilting department. I believe I just basically started these socks last week when I showed you. These are Robbie's latest purple socks. See the different purples and greens show up, purples and grays showing up now. And I'm still knitting them both on the same needle, 2 at a time. Now that I'm past the toes, I can actually start zooming around a little bit faster, and I want to see just how much faster it is for me to... I wanted to see if it's knitting faster, one sock on one needle and one sock at the other concurrently, or if it is faster to knit them both at the same time, doing magic loop. Here's my yarn. I'm using the Premier yarn from Deborah Norville's collection line. This colorway is Amethyst. One of my subscribers very generously sent this in so I can make a nice purple pair of socks for Robbie. He loves purple. I love purple. It's okay. As you might remember, if you've been following me for a little while, Chalgoos are my favorite needles. I am knitting these on a size 1. Robbie wears a size 14 shoe. He has a rather large foot, so I do have to use 76 stitches to knit his socks, so they're kind of big. It does take a little bit. Just to give anyone who's a non-knitter, Robbie's socks I knit 76 stitches, and my socks I believe for a size 9, I wear a size 9 shoe, and I think I'm knitting mine at either 58 stitches or maybe 60 stitches. I don't remember. But it's a lot different than Robbie's big old hoof. So if you're watching my Sew With Me Friday videos where I bring you into my craft room and we work on a project together, or you watch me work on a project, and then if you like to, you work on it along with me, and I show you kind of some tips and tricks as I go along, find my stumbling blocks so that you don't have to have those problems yourself. I am making the herringbone quilt as you go. I made a few blocks this week. 1, a 2. Remember that lollipop commercial? How many licks to get to the center of a Tootsie Pop? A 3, crunch.
4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14,
15. 16 blocks. I have enough batting pieced for 25 blocks, I believe. I think I'm only going to use 20, but I'll use those 5 blocks for something else, or I'll just change up my plan. I'm not really sure exactly what my finished quilt is going to be like. So I went through and I did stitch all these down, and I trimmed them all up, and they're ready for the next step, which will be deciding how I'm going to stitch them together and what, how many 4 across and 5 down and stuff like that, or 5 across and 4 down, however it works. They will be going into a quilt in the long face like this way, so the 12.5 inches, it will be this way and not this way, although I could put it that way. This is how I've always pictured it in my mind. So even after doing all of those blocks, and I'll still have more after I do the rest of my blocks, because look at all these strips I have cut up. I think my next quilt is going to be, my next scrappy quilt will be a log cabin. So if you've never made a log cabin quilt, or you want to just follow along with me making a scrappy one, that's going to be the next sew with me, and that probably won't show up until maybe later this month and into October, but that is definitely going to be my next scrappy. I did the crumbs, I did the herringbone, and I've wanted to do a scrappy log cabin again for a while. I kind of tend to repeat some of the same projects over and over again. Like I love to do rail fence quilts, and I did all those crumb blocks, so now I'm going to do another log cabin. I think this might be like my 5th or 6th log cabin. And I still have to go through all my cutoffs from when I trim down my herringbone blocks. So I have all these bits. I need to separate them from each other and from the batting so they can go into my crumb pile. Because I've used up all my crumbs when I made my crumb curtains. And I'm kind of thinking I want to make a crumb shower curtain to put into my bathroom. My bathroom's not very, it's not dark or it's not bright. It's just kind of blah. I have a store-bought curtain in there because, and I kind of tend to go and spend the least amount of money, so it's just kind of a ho-hum. It's got some nice colors on it, but it's nothing spectacular. So I thought for my outer shower curtain, I would go ahead and make some more crumb blocks and put a crumb curtain in there because it's really brightened up my craft room, that it would actually add a lot of color and brighten up my bathroom. So that's everything I worked on this week. I hope you guys enjoy just going through and seeing what I have been doing. If you want to show me what you've been working on, just go ahead and tag me up on Instagram. I'm RsIslandCrafts pretty much everywhere. We do have a little bit of a Facebook group if you want to do show and tell down below. It's not anything I really keep all that active in. It's just another way for people to show me what they've been working on if they want to show off their quilts. But the easiest way to show, I think, is Instagram. Just tends to be so quick and easy nowadays, doesn't it? You can just pop up a picture real quick, and half the time, if you don't want to even put a description, you don't have to. Just tag me in it. You do that little @ symbol and then RsIslandCrafts, and I'll see it. Alright, guys. Thanks for hanging out with me this week, and I'll see you next time. Bye!